Have you ever wondered why you feel more emotionally raw now than you did when everything in your life was actually falling apart? Why you're suddenly crying at commercials, feeling overwhelmed by simple decisions, or questioning relationships you've maintained for years? What I'm about to share might completely change how you view your emotional journey. These intense, uncomfortable feelings you've been experiencing aren't signs that you're broken or moving backwards. They're actually profound indicators that your psyche is undergoing one of the most significant transformations of your life. Today, we're diving deep into the hidden emotional signals that prove you're healing, even when every fiber of your being feels like it's unraveling. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your current emotional chaos might be the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to your soul, and I'll give you the exact framework to navigate this sacred process with confidence and self-compassion. The truth about emotional healing that nobody talks about is this: it doesn't look like what Instagram would have you believe. There are no perfectly curated morning routines, no constant states of bliss, and certainly no linear progression from pain to peace. Real healing, the kind that transforms you at a cellular level, looks more like emotional archaeology. You're digging through layers of buried trauma, uncovering forgotten parts of yourself, and sometimes what you find isn't pretty. Carl Jung understood this better than perhaps any psychologist before or since. He wrote extensively about what he called the dark night of the soul, a period of profound psychological transformation that often feels like complete dissolution before reconstruction. Jung observed that his patients would frequently report feeling worse before they felt better, experiencing what seemed like emotional regression when they were actually on the verge of breakthrough. Modern neuroscience has validated Jung's intuitive understanding of this process. Research from Harvard Medical School shows that when we begin to process deep emotional trauma, our brains literally rewire themselves. This neuroplasticity creates what scientists call emotional turbulence, as old neural pathways dissolve and new, healthier ones form. During this reconstruction phase, you might feel like you're losing your mind when you're actually finding your authentic self. The problem is that our culture has taught us to fear emotional discomfort. We've been conditioned to believe that any deviation from happiness or stability means something is wrong with us. We reach for quick fixes, numbing strategies, or positive thinking mantras to avoid the natural discomfort that comes with genuine transformation. But what if I told you that your emotional distress might be the most reliable compass you have for finding your way back to wholeness? Jung's concept of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are beneath all the conditioning and trauma, requires what he called holding the tension of opposites. This means learning to sit with contradictory feelings simultaneously, to be comfortable with the discomfort of not knowing, and to trust the wisdom of your unconscious mind, even when your conscious mind is screaming for control. The challenge is that healing often activates what Jung termed the shadow, those parts of ourselves we've rejected, denied, or pushed into the unconscious. When you begin serious inner work, whether through therapy, meditation, journaling, or simply becoming more self-aware, you're essentially inviting your shadow to come out and play, and your shadow has been waiting a long time to be acknowledged. This is why people often feel worse when they start therapy or embark on a spiritual path. It's not because these practices aren't working. It's because they're working so well that all the suppressed material you've been carrying for years suddenly has permission to surface. Your psyche, in its infinite wisdom, knows that you're finally ready to handle what you've been avoiding. The ancient Greeks had a word for this process, catharsis, which literally means purification or cleansing. They understood that emotional release, even when painful, was necessary for psychological health. Modern trauma therapy has rediscovered this wisdom, recognizing that healing happens not by avoiding difficult emotions, but by moving through them with support and awareness. One of the most profound aspects of healing is how it affects your relationship with time. Linear time, the kind measured by clocks and calendars, becomes less relevant as you enter what Jung called kairos, sacred time, where past, present, and future collapse into a single moment of awareness. This is why memories might suddenly feel as vivid as if they happened yesterday, or why you might feel like you're regressing to childhood emotional states. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between past and present when it comes to emotional experience. When you're healing, you're not just processing current events, you're metabolizing decades of accumulated emotional residue. Every tear you cry now might be releasing grief you weren't safe enough to feel when you were 7. Every boundary you set now might be protecting the child within you who never learned they had the right to say no. This understanding transforms how we view emotional symptoms during healing. Sudden mood swings aren't evidence of instability. They're signs that your emotional range is expanding after years of constriction. Feeling overwhelmed by simple decisions isn't weakness. It's your system recalibrating after operating in survival mode for so long. Questioning everything about your life isn't crisis, it's consciousness. Jung believed that symptoms were not problems to be eliminated, but messages to be understood. He would ask his patients not, "How do we get rid of this feeling?" but, "What is this feeling trying to teach us?" This shift in perspective transforms suffering from something meaningless into something sacred, from something to be feared into something to be honored. The paradox of healing is that it often requires us to feel worse before we feel better, because we're finally feeling at all. Many people who come to therapy or begin serious inner work have spent years in a state of emotional numbness, disconnected from their inner lives as a survival mechanism. When the numbness begins to thaw, the first sensations aren't necessarily pleasant. It's like blood returning to a limb that's been asleep. There's tingling discomfort, even pain before normal sensation returns. This process can be particularly challenging for people who have been the strong one in their families, the caretaker, the one everyone turns to in crisis. When you begin to heal, you might discover that your strength was actually a sophisticated form of self-abandonment, a way of avoiding your own needs by focusing on everyone else's. As you begin to turn inward, to attend to your own emotional needs, it can feel selfish, wrong, even dangerous. But this apparent selfishness is actually self-preservation. It's your psyche finally insisting on its own right to exist, to be heard, to be cared for. Jung called this process withdrawing projections, taking back the energy you've been investing in fixing, saving, or managing other people and redirecting it toward your own healing and growth. The beautiful thing about this stage of healing is that while it feels isolating, you're actually connecting more deeply with yourself than ever before. You're developing what psychologists call secure internal attachment, the ability to be your own source of comfort, validation, and support. This doesn't mean you don't need other people. It means you're no longer desperately dependent on others for your sense of self-worth and stability. Research in attachment theory shows that people with secure attachment styles have better relationships, lower rates of anxiety and depression, and greater resilience in the face of life's challenges. But here's the remarkable thing. Even if you didn't develop secure attachment in childhood, you can develop it as an adult through the process of healing. You can literally become the parent to yourself that you needed when you were young. This reparenting process often involves grieving, not just for what you didn't receive, but for who you had to become in order to survive. You might find yourself mourning the childhood you never had, the spontaneity you lost, the trust that was broken, the innocence that was stolen. This grief is sacred work. It's your heart finally acknowledging what was lost so that it can be released and replaced with something more authentic. Jung understood that this kind of grief was essential for individuation. He wrote about the necessity of sacrificing the persona, the mask we wear to fit into society and gain approval. As you heal, your persona begins to crack, revealing the authentic self beneath. This can feel terrifying because your persona has been your protection, your way of ensuring acceptance and safety. But as it dissolves, what emerges is infinitely more beautiful, your true essence. The feelings that arise during this dissolution can be intense and confusing. You might feel like you're losing yourself when you're actually finding yourself for the first time. You might feel more sensitive, more emotional, more reactive than usual. This isn't regression, it's expansion. You're developing greater emotional range, deeper empathy, and increased capacity for authentic connection. One of the most challenging aspects of healing is how it affects your relationships. As you change, the dynamics you've maintained with others naturally shift. Some relationships will deepen and become more authentic. Others might feel strained or even end. This can be heartbreaking, especially when it involves family members or longtime friends who are threatened by your growth. Jung wrote about this phenomenon in his discussion of the collective shadow. Sometimes our healing triggers other people's unhealed wounds, making them uncomfortable with our changes. They might try to pull you back into old patterns, criticize your new boundaries, or dismiss your healing journey as self-indulgent. This reaction isn't really about you, it's about their own fear of looking at their inner world. Understanding this can help you navigate the relational challenges that often accompany healing. You're not responsible for other people's comfort with your growth. Your job is to stay true to your healing process while maintaining compassion for those who aren't ready for their own journey. This balance between self-loyalty and relational harmony is one of the greatest challenges of personal transformation. The somatic aspect of healing is another area that often surprises people. Your body, which has been storing trauma and stress for years, begins to release this accumulated tension as you heal. You might experience unusual fatigue, changes in sleep patterns, digestive issues, or other physical symptoms that don't seem to have a medical cause. This is your body's way of letting go of what it no longer needs to carry. Trauma research has shown us that the body keeps score of every experience, storing memories in our muscles, our posture, our breathing patterns, and our nervous system responses. As you heal emotionally, your body needs time to catch up, to unlearn the physical patterns of protection and survival that served you during difficult times but are no longer necessary. This mind-body connection is why healing often involves not just talk therapy, but also body-based practices like yoga, breathwork, massage, or somatic experiencing. Your rational mind can understand that you're safe now, but your body might still be braced for danger. Gentle, conscious movement and breath practices can help communicate safety to your nervous system in a language it understands. Sleep patterns often change dramatically during intensive healing periods. You might find yourself dreaming more vividly, waking up frequently, or needing more rest than usual. Jung placed enormous importance on dreams as messages from the unconscious, and during healing, your unconscious often has a lot to say. Your dreams might be processing old memories, working through current challenges, or even offering guidance for your healing journey. Rather than seeing sleep disruption as a problem, try viewing it as a sign that deep work is happening. Your psyche is reorganizing itself during sleep, integrating new insights and releasing old patterns. Honor this process by creating a restful environment and allowing yourself the extra sleep your system is requesting. The cognitive changes that accompany healing can also be disorienting. You might find it harder to concentrate, experience memory issues, or feel mentally foggy. This isn't permanent brain damage, it's neuroplasticity in action. Your brain is literally rewiring itself, creating new neural pathways and allowing old ones to dissolve. This process requires enormous energy and can temporarily affect cognitive function. Research in neuroplasticity shows that the brain can continue forming new connections throughout life, but this process is energy-intensive. During periods of intensive healing, your brain is working overtime to integrate new experiences and perspectives. Be patient with yourself during this cognitive reorganization. The mental clarity will return, often enhanced by the insights you've gained through the healing process. One of the most profound shifts that occurs during healing is in your relationship with uncertainty. Most of us have been taught to fear the unknown, to always have a plan, to feel in control of our circumstances. But healing requires surrendering to the mystery of transformation, trusting in processes you can't see or control, and being comfortable with not knowing what comes next. This surrender can feel like death, and in a way, it is. It's the death of old ways of being, outdated beliefs about yourself, and familiar patterns that no longer serve you. Jung wrote about this as a form of spiritual death and rebirth, a necessary dissolution before reconstitution. The fear you feel during this process is natural and valid. You're letting go of everything you thought you were to become who you truly are. The emotional volatility that often accompanies healing serves an important function. Emotions are energy in motion, and when you've been suppressing them for years, they need to move through your system to be released. This might mean crying more than usual, feeling anger you've never allowed yourself to express, or experiencing joy so intense it's almost overwhelming. Rather than trying to control or moderate these emotional expressions, try to view them as your system's way of rebalancing itself. Each tear carries toxins out of your body. Each moment of anger releases energy that was trapped in resentment. Each experience of joy reminds your nervous system what safety and pleasure feel like. The spiritual dimension of healing often becomes more apparent during this process, even for people who don't consider themselves particularly spiritual. You might find yourself drawn to practices like meditation, prayer, or spending time in nature. You might begin to sense a connection to something larger than yourself, whether you call it God, the universe, or simply the mystery of existence. Jung understood this spiritual awakening as a natural part of individuation. As you heal your personal wounds, you begin to access what he called the collective unconscious, the deeper layer of psyche that connects all humanity. This connection can bring profound meaning and purpose to your life, transforming personal pain into universal compassion. The timeline of healing varies enormously from person to person, and there's no right pace for this process. Some people experience rapid transformation, while others require years of gentle, gradual change. The depth of your wounds, the resources available to you, and your unique constitution all influence how your healing unfolds. Comparing your healing journey to others is not only unhelpful but potentially harmful. Social media tends to show only the highlights of people's transformation stories, not the messy middle stages where most of the real work happens. Trust your own timing and honor your unique process, even if it doesn't look like what you expected or what others have experienced. The community aspect of healing becomes crucial during this vulnerable time. While you might feel like isolating yourself, connecting with others who understand the healing journey can provide essential support and validation. This might be through therapy groups, spiritual communities, online forums, or simply trusted friends who can witness your process without trying to fix or change you. However, it's important to be discerning about who you share your healing journey with. Not everyone will understand or support your process, and some people might inadvertently undermine your progress by offering unsolicited advice or judgment. Surround yourself with people who can hold space for your transformation without needing you to be different than you are. The financial aspect of healing is something that's often overlooked, but can create additional stress during an already challenging time. Therapy, alternative healing modalities, and the potential need for time off work can strain your resources. It's important to remember that healing doesn't have to be expensive to be effective. There are many free or low-cost resources available, from community mental health centers to online support groups to library books on psychology and spirituality. The most important investment you can make in your healing is your attention and intention. Expensive retreats and high-priced healers aren't necessary if you're committed to showing up for yourself with honesty and consistency. Sometimes the most profound healing happens in the quiet moments of self-reflection, in the decision to feel your feelings instead of avoiding them, in the choice to treat yourself with the compassion you would offer a beloved friend. As you move through this healing process, you'll begin to notice subtle but significant changes in how you relate to yourself and others. You might find yourself naturally setting boundaries that once felt impossible to maintain. You might discover that you're less reactive to other people's moods and behaviors. You might notice that you're more comfortable with solitude and less dependent on external validation for your sense of worth. These changes often happen so gradually that you don't notice them until someone else points them out, or you find yourself in a situation that would have previously triggered intense distress, but now feels manageable. This is the fruit of your healing work, not the absence of challenges, but an increased capacity to meet life's difficulties with resilience, wisdom, and self-compassion. The integration phase of healing is where the real magic happens. This is when the insights you've gained, the emotions you've processed, and the patterns you've changed begin to stabilize into a new way of being. You're no longer constantly processing and releasing. Instead, you're learning to live from this new, more authentic place. Integration can be just as challenging as the earlier stages of healing because it requires you to consistently choose your new patterns over your old ones, even when the old ones feel more familiar. It's like learning to walk again after a serious injury. The physical capacity is there, but it takes time and practice to trust it fully. During this phase, you might find yourself tested by situations that would have previously sent you into old patterns of behavior. These tests aren't punishments. They're opportunities to practice your new skills and to see how far you've come. Each time you respond differently than you would have in the past, you're strengthening the neural pathways that support your healed self. The ripple effects of your healing extend far beyond your personal life. As you become more authentic, more emotionally regulated, and more self-compassionate, you naturally begin to offer these qualities to others. You might find that your relationships become deeper and more meaningful. You might discover that you're better able to support friends and family members who are struggling. You might even feel called to help others who are on their own healing journeys. This isn't about becoming a therapist or healer in the professional sense, but about embodying the qualities that emerge from genuine self-work. Empathy without enmeshment, strength without rigidity, wisdom without judgment. These qualities are desperately needed in our world, and your healing contributes to the collective healing of our human community. The ongoing nature of healing is something that can initially feel discouraging, but eventually becomes a source of comfort and even excitement. Healing isn't a destination you arrive at, it's a way of living, a commitment to continued growth and self-discovery. There's always another layer to explore, another pattern to understand, another aspect of yourself to embrace. This ongoing process means that you'll continue to encounter challenging emotions and difficult situations throughout your life. The difference is that you'll have the tools and perspective to navigate these challenges more skillfully. You'll know that intense feelings are temporary, that discomfort often signals growth, and that you have the inner resources to handle whatever life brings your way. As we conclude this exploration of the hidden signs of healing, remember that your current emotional experience, however challenging, is sacred. You're not broken, behind, or doing anything wrong. You're courageously engaging in one of the most important works a human being can undertake, the journey back to your authentic self. Trust the process, even when you can't see where it's leading. Honor your feelings even when they're uncomfortable. Be patient with yourself, even when progress feels slow. And remember that every step you take toward healing, no matter how small, is an act of love not only for yourself but for everyone whose life you touch. Your healing matters more than you know. It matters to the child within you who has been waiting so long to feel safe. It matters to your future self, who will benefit from the courage you're showing today. And it matters to the world, which needs more healed, authentic, compassionate human beings walking upon it. You are exactly where you need to be, feeling exactly what you need to feel, healing exactly as you need to heal. Trust yourself. Trust the process. Trust that your healing is unfolding perfectly, even when it doesn't feel like it. Because it is, and you are more beautiful, brave, and whole than you have ever imagined possible. If this message has touched something in your heart, share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Leave a comment below about your own healing journey. What surprises you? What challenges you? What gives you hope? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And don't forget to subscribe for more insights into the beautiful, messy, sacred process of becoming who you truly are.